This is Simba. Simba's going to be 5 years old in a few weeks. This is Splash. Splash is Simba's brother. They were born at the same time. And this is Stella. Stella is Splash and Simba's mother. Stella's going to be 6 years old in like a month or maybe 2 months. We don't know exactly when Stella was born. And we don't know exactly when Simba was born. But we do know it was sometime around the end of April or early May, because Stella had them outside near the backyard, right, Stella? And this is Boo. Boo is Splash and Simba's daddy. And he was a really good babysitter, right, Boo? When all the cats were living outside and Stella used to come by to get some food, Boo used to babysit Splash and Simba. And the way I know that is because I used to peek under the fence and I used to see Boo babysitting the kittens. So Stella would come into the yard to eat some food, to get some meals, and Boo used to hang out with the kittens. He used to hang out with baby Splash and baby Simba, make sure they were okay. And when their grandma and grandpa asked me what they would like for their birthdays, I thought they might like a scratching ramp, because I keep seeing advertisements for it online, and since their grandpa is really good at building things with wood, I thought he might be able to make them a scratching ramp for their birthday.
Hello, this is Grandpa here. Today I'm going to start my project to make a cat ramp with a pad on it so they can scratch. I got some 1x4 boards, a 1x2 board, a 2x4 quarter-inch thick underlayment board that I have to cut down the size, and I have a 3/4 of an inch dowel that I have to cut to fit underneath. So first I've got to make the boxes, and this is going to be a 32.5 inch long ramp by 14 inches wide. So that's my measurements, but I have to cut all the wood and start putting it together. All my pieces of my 2 boxes have been cut up. The 2 big long rails, the 2 short ones, and then the lower box with the 1x2s and the shorter 1x2s to make the lower box. This is my rough cut for the panel where the rug is going to go on for the cats to walk up. I cut it roughly 14 inches by 33 inches. I'm going to be trimming it down to fit into the frame. That'll be a little bit later. I have my 2 rails for my big box that I have to trim the ends off of them. One is going to have a straight line angle, and the other end, the lower end, is going to have a curve. So you can see I've drawn a curve line on this one, curve line on this one that I've got to cut with my jigsaw, and then I have the straight angle on this one and a straight angle on this one. From here to here is 2¼ inches, and from here to here is 2½ inches. Again, from here to here, 2¼ from here to here, 2½, and I'll cut it with my big saw, which is easy to do compared to using the jigsaw. I changed my mind. I'm going to be cutting the angle line off with my jigsaw. Play it safer. So now I'll be cutting the curved end off of this one end of the rail. Now I'm going to cut the curved end off the rail, cut the straight edge. Now I'm going to cut the curve. Okay, we're working on the rails. The hardest part with the rails is to make a notch so I can put my panel that the rug is going to go on into this notch with no difficulty. So it fits here, so when we slide it in, we'll have no problem. The thing is, how I did it, I took my skill saw, measured 1/4 inch depth because the board is 3/4 of an inch from here to here. Board is 3/4 of an inch from here to here. So I went and put a depth of 1/4 of an inch on my skill saw to notch out the slot for the panel. And I had to do a couple passes so the board slides in nice and easy. That's how I made the notch in my board, because I don't have that particular tool. But it would have been making it nice and easy, but I used my skill saw to cut out the notch. Ran a couple passes and the board fits. Tool that I'm missing is a router. I don't have a router tool to put a bit in and notch the channel out. So that would have made my job a lot easier, but I used my skill saw and I was successful in cutting out the channel. I'm ready to put my bottom box together with the end pieces to the side rails. I had to measure the end pieces to fit below the notch, so more or less it'll fit in, so when I put the panel in, it'll slide right over the end rail there. On both ends I had to do the same thing. So now I'm going to screw them all together with the screws into the end boards. What we're going to do next is measure our slot from one side to the next side, and then I've got to cut my top panel, the panel down to fit into that slot. So then we're going to take a measurement. So now we're going to cut our panel down to size to fit in the slot, hopefully. We're now going to test our panel that we've been trimming down to fit into the slot so we can slide it in. When it has the rug on it, you have no problem. See if it slides in nice and smooth. Slide in a few times. Goes in nice, goes all the way to the end where it should be. Ends here, and it slides out nice. So we're done with this top part frame. Now we got to work on our bottom frame. Before I go and start the bottom ramp, let's go over how I made the top rack. More or less, the measurements are 32.5 inches long by 14 inches wide, and more or less I had to cut a slot in the 1x4s in order to fit the panel that holds the rug to go in nice and smooth. The measurement from the top of the 1x4 to the start of the slot is 3/8 of an inch. Then it's 1/4 of an inch. I cut a slot out with my skill saw, so I don't have a router. If I had a 1/4 inch router, it would have been nice and easy, but I don't have one. Then we had to put a support beam in almost the middle of our frame. It measures 13.5 inches from here to the center of the beam. It's 13.5 inches. So I mounted that because we're going to put our support apparatus in there. And then on the ends, I had to put a board here again. It measures 12.5 inches, these boards on the end. From here to here is 12.5 inches. This is, and more or less I had to measure the height from here to here, cut the board down in order to fit the support beam. The back end, which is the bottom, I have another beam that I had to cut to fit in because we have a curved end, and more or less I got a few holes here when I was making this thing. How do you make it? Does it fit properly? How to mount the bottom rack that's going to go inside this thing. So I had to play around a little bit in order to get it to work properly. So I have a curved end, and the top has a straight angle. It's the length of the angle is 3 inches. From here to here is 3 inches. So that's how I made this top rack. Then the panel, we have, our panel is 3/6 inches thick, so it could fit easily in our 1/4 inch slot. It slides right in. Works fine. Now I'll put this on the side and start working on the bottom rack. Now we're going to make our bottom rack. As you can see, it's already been made. More or less the cutout is, since we don't have measurements from the picture that I saw of this paw scratcher ramp, so more or less I had to make up my own measurements. And the total length of our bottom rack is 26.5 inches by 12, I believe, 12 3/8 inches wide. This beam here measures 10 3/4 inches from here to here. Same with this beam from here to here. These two pieces of wood on the inside that will have notches made out to hold the support are 12 inches in length. So again, it's a 1x2 cut 12 inches of length attached to the 1x2s. And then at the one end, in order to have this swing up, this is what I had to do. I had to drill a hole there to put a bolt through it, and then put a curved end to it, so when you raise it, it'll have the ability to go up, or else you'll be hitting wood and you can't do anything. So you have to have that curve in there and the bolt hole in order to go up. And the bolt is almost in the center of it. The quarter inch bolt hole. So more or less a 1/4 inch bolt hole on both sides makes this work. To attach the bottom rack to the top rack system, I had to drill a 1/4 inch hole here and on this side. The measurements for this hole are 1 inch from the top of the rail to here and 2 inches from here to here. So it's 1 down and 2 to the end of the board. That's the measurements for that whole 1/4 inch hole drill. And then we already have the holes drilled in the bottom frame. So now I have to put the two together with the 1/4 inch bolts that I have that join the two together. I've attached the bottom rack to the top rack with the 1/4 inch bolt, 1 3/4 inch long bolt. Could be a 2 inch bolt if you want a little bit more to stick out, or put a pin in there of some sort. So now mainly why I got the curved ends there, watch the thing, so you can lift up and you can bring the bottom frame up to a vertical 90 straight up like that. So now without that curve in it, without the curve down there cut, you wouldn't be able to do that. So now we can bring it down. The hardest part of this whole project is making this little gadget here that will hold the ramp up at different angles. More or less this is what it looks like, but to figure this out measurement wise took a little trial and error to do this, and more or less this is what we have here. The total length of our support thing is 9 inches of a 1x2 board cut, and more or less we had to make we put curved angles, curves at both ends, and I have a 1/2-inch dowel going from one side to the other. Whoops, things fell down on me. And more or less my dowel length, let's see here, measures approximately 10 3/4, yeah, 10 3/4 inch length dowel. Now to support this bracket, I have a 2.5-inch corner metal brackets that I had to buy. More or less, they had to be modified a little bit so they could fit in, so this whole thing lays down. So I have pins holding my board to the metal bracket, and I have a cotter pin going through the pin. This is what I happen to have on hand, so it was easier for me to use. And more or less, you see the pin is in the center of the 1x2. And then to support the bracket, I had to put a beam from here to here, roughly 7 1/4 inches from one side to the other. Then I have to attach the metal brackets to the support beam that we had on the upper frame. So I'm going to do that. Now I'm putting my screws into my support brackets. I finished attaching the 2 brackets on the support bar going across on the top rack, and more or less in between the arm and the metal bracket here there's a 1/4 inch metal washer. So more or less, because the metal bracket has these little dimples on it, you don't want it'll affect this going up and down. And like I mentioned, all I had was the pins. You could use 1/4 inch bolts with a nut on it, but I had the pins, and it happened to work out just fine with the cotter pins going in the first hole. Here we are with it all put together, and more or less the dowel fits in the notches, so you can lift it up and then say which height do you want it at. This is the highest it'll go. It'll be about 17 inches to the top, and then it'll go lower and then lower. Now the 2 front notches, this one and this one, I like to store my rail up, so I put it in here, and it folds down all the way to the bottom. Now, as you can see, the scratching ramp lays flat on the table, so it would lay flat on your floor in your house. This metal bracket, I had to cut a 1/2 inch of metal off here, just like below this first hole over here. From here to here, I cut it off so it enables the scratching ramp to lay flat on the table. I use my Dremel with my cutting wheel, and I cut the metal right off nice and easy instead of using a hacksaw. And I did it with my Dremel. Now you can see how the support bracket fits underneath this. Some other scratching ramp pads have it, you see it folds to this side, but then you have it doesn't hold it in. So when I store it, I like to have it on the front this way, so it fits in the notches so it doesn't fall out on me. So when I'm handling it up and down, it goes like that. I come to this side, lift up, put it in, and I'm all done with my, not all done, still have to go buy a rug to fit on the top of our ramp. So a ramp is going to be 12 inches by a 31-inch rug. So a 12 by 31 rug is going to fit here. And more or less, I've seen a rug in the store already that I have to purchase, and I could cut three of these size rugs out of that one big one. And more or less, so you have, once the cats scratch the first one, peel it off, and then put the second one on. They scratch that up, peel that off, put the third one on. And you do it 3 times, and you have to go out and buy another rug, cut it to measurement, and apply it to the board again. I believe I'm going to use twin stick tape, strips of it, to go down 1, 2, and 3 lengths so it sticks to the back of the rug, and you just peel it off and reapply the new rug on top of it. So that's how I made my scratching pad ramp for my cats. Here I have my ramp pet scratcher on top of the rug that I'm going to cut up into 3 pieces to fit into my scratcher pad. Here's my 3x4 rug that I purchased for $10, and now I'm going to cut it up into 3 pieces measuring 31 inches by 12 1/4 inches. This is how I'm going to cut the rug into 3 pieces. I've measured 12 1/4, or a little 16th past that 12 1/4 mark, and put a piece of masking tape to the length of the rug 3 feet, so I can cut along this edge here all the way along. Then I'll use that as a template to cut the other 2. I'm using a pair of scissors that I have. Cut it along that edge. Now I'm going to cut the length of the rug to 31 inches. I have my ruler down there, and 31 inches is here. Eyeball it, and there's a line on the rug that you could follow going across, so you cut a fairly straight line. That's how I've cut my first rug out. Fit it in. It looks good. Now all I've got to do is adhere the rug to the scratching pad. We're about to make our second rug. Now we take our first piece that we had cut, use it as a template. Now I'm going to take my masking tape and line it up to the edge like so. Fit it. There we go. The line-up is set up. Now all I've got to do is cut this one out. We have our 3 rugs on top of our ramp scratching pad for the cats. We'll cut them up, make sure they fit. Here's number 1. Here's number 2. And here's number 3. So more or less, to attach the rug to the board, I'm going to use twin stick tape and see how it comes out. If it doesn't come out too good, I got to figure out a different way to attach the carpeting to the board. I've put my strips of twin stick tape, double face tape, twin stick tape, couple strips on the back. That's all I had available in my workbench. So now I got to peel off the paper and then lay the carpeting on top, and let's see what happens. Let's put the carpeting on, roll it down, pressing as you push it down, as you roll it down. Yeah, we got it in now. I'm using my tape to press it down instead of my hand. There we go. And more or less, as you see, here comes our board with our new rug on it. Goes back in. Got it. Make sure you got it in the slot down at that end. And we've completed our ramp paw scratching for our cats. And more or less, once the cats wear this one out, you just peel this one off and you put the replacement on top. We take it out and it seems to hold. That's the way. And the board that I was using is called an underlayment board, and it's 3/16 of an inch thick. I got it at Home Depot. There we are. Looks beautiful to me. A nice replica of the picture that I saw. We didn't have a blueprint to go by, so we had to go by judgment on how long these pieces should be. Mainly we got the two main widths, the 14-inch width and the 32.5-inch length. Then all the rest of the parts I had to figure that out for myself. And for a total cost of $65 to make this whole project. Got my supplies from Home Depot and from my workbench.
Look what Splash and Simba got for their birthday. Look at this. It's a Scratchy ramp.